Welcome back. If you stepped outside today, you know it's getting a little bit chilly out there, which means it might be time to take that last produce in and bring it inside for some canning. But how do you do that? What does it look like? Well, joining us now on our 702 Communications line, 702 Communications, keeping us connected. We've got Rita, an NDSU Extension agent with some great answers. Rita, good morning. Great to have you back.
Good morning, Chris. Thanks for having me back.
So tell us your specialty here with canning. We hear a lot about it, but how do you do it?
Okay, so what I want to do is tell you that we need to follow proper procedures when we're canning. There's a lot of ideas floating on the internet that are unsafe practices. So we want to make sure you're using safe practices when we're preserving our produce for this winter. So first of all, you want to start with produce, and your produce should be in good quality. It should be free of blemishes and not disease, because if you start with a good product, you're going to end with a good product. But if you start with a bad product, you're not going to end up with a good product. So some of the things you need to remember when we're canning is you need to use a proper canning jar. And those are, you can purchase them or you may have them. You do not want to reuse like a pickle jar or a mayonnaise jar. So make sure you're using a proper canning jar when you are canning. And then making sure that you're using a brand new lid, that you don't reuse lids from previous years. And make sure you're following the manufacturer's instructions when you're using your lids. Nowadays, you simply need to wash them with hot soapy water and rinse them. Previously, you used to boil them. So make sure you follow your manufacturer's directions for the lids, and making sure that you use a band that's rust-free. But you can reuse your bands each year. We know that lids are in short supply this year. So one of the other methods you can do is you can freeze your product, but you also want to make sure you're using a freezer container that's designed for the freezer. We also understand they are getting to be in a short supply, but you can use a freezer bag. And again, just look in your package section at the grocery store, but make sure it is a freezer type bag. Some other tips that we need to make sure we're looking at, especially if we're going to can our tomatoes, which seem to be in tremendous supply this year, is that we need to, if you're making a salsa or something, you might want to use vinegar, especially with pickles, but you want to make sure it's a 5% vinegar. If you look on the label, it will say 5%. We understand there's a lot of 4% vinegars on the market right now, so make sure you're in the canning section at the store picking up 5% vinegar. When we're making like a tomato product, so it says by whole tomatoes over here, we need to add acid to it. So we add in lemon juice to make sure it's acidic enough so we can actually hot water bath it. So it's 2 tablespoons of lemon juice per quart of tomatoes. So with that, with all of our equipment, we're going to make sure we're following all the safe procedures. You're wondering, where do I get the safe recipes, since you don't want me to go to the internet? Well, NDSU Extension Service has many publications available on our website for all the different products. So if it's tomatoes or vegetables or fruit, so we have all the recommendations that are designed for North Dakota or Minnesota. And if the other way you can go is to a Ball Blue Book, and that's also a recommended procedure that you can be using as a Ball Blue Book. This year, NDSU Extension Service has come up with some really nice publications. They're called Field to Fork. And we have one on onions, one on tomatoes, on potatoes and squash. And it actually tells you how to grow them, how to preserve them if it's freezing or canning. And then they have recipes on the back side. And we also have a pocket guide available that you can, for all the different products. There's many different products on that. So we want to make sure you're using the safe procedures when you are preserving your food for this upcoming winter. And if you need more information, simply give me a call at my office at 701-241-5700, or you can email me at rita.usatis@ndsu.edu.
So you mentioned the vinegar, it has to be at 5% rather than 4. I mean, what are some of the most common mistakes that you see going on out there, and then what does that do to your product?
Okay, so one of the most common mistakes we see is the jars aren't sealing. So you're putting the lid on and you're putting the band on, and you're taking it and you're tightening it as tight as you can. Right now, you just finger tight your lids and bands. You don't tighten them as hard as you can anymore because the lids aren't sealing. We also are seeing a lot of people using the 4% vinegar in place of the 5% vinegar. But what we're really seeing is people are using improper procedures such as the oven or dishwasher to preserve their food in place of a blue water canner, a stock pot, or a pressure canner on your stove. So we want to make sure you're using the proper equipment on the proper procedures to preserve your food.
Fascinating. What's the easiest thing to can and what's the toughest thing to can?
I think it really varies what you like, but I think salsa is very easy to make. With salsa, you want to make sure you're using a tested recipe. If you design your own salsa recipe, because you want it hotter, or if you have your own recipe, we cannot give you a proper time to process that. So if you're making your own recipe up, you need to actually freeze it or put it in the fridge and eat it within a couple weeks. So that's another mistake we see is people making their own recipe up and trying to process it for the winter.
So for someone like me who's a total novice and thought, oh, hey, I think I want to do this, could I Skype call you or something and you could sort of walk me through it? Or, I mean, how much can NDSU
Sure.
extension?
Actually, if you go to our website, the address I gave you, the ag.ndsu.edu website, we actually have some YouTube videos up on how to process foods, but you can give me a call and I can also walk you through step by step.
Good stuff, Rita. Anything else you want to share with us?
No, I just want to make sure that we are following proper procedures. So this upcoming winter, you can have fresh salsa or whole tomatoes or pickles or sauce or whatever you want, and make sure it's safe and your family can enjoy the produce that you worked so hard this summer producing.
Great stuff. Rita, thank you very much. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a great day. And stay with us when we come back. We got Rob from Breadsmith. Stick around.